Society Relations IRS Standing Committee of IEEE Delhi Section, Industry Relation and Special Interest Group on Humanitarian Technology, Site Standing Committee of IEEE Delhi Section, Region 10 of IEEE with the Associations of Computer Society of India CSI, Institute of Information Technology Professionals IITP, ISTE Delhi Section and IETE Delhi Center as technical collaborators. Welcome you all today to this IEEE IETE BVI CAM technical lecture series on the power of storytelling, enhancing communication and innovation across careers. According to Steven Spielberg, the renowned filmmaker, the most amazing thing for me is that every single person who sees a movie, not necessarily one of my movies, bring a whole set of unique experiences, but through careful manipulation and good storytelling, you can get everybody to clap at the same time, to hopefully laugh at the same time, and be afraid at the same time. This quote reflects the power of good storytelling. Storytelling is a powerful tool across diverse careers, from educationists to software engineers, product managers, and students. For educational storytelling enhances engagement and makes complex concepts relatable, fostering deeper learning. In software engineering, explaining technical ideas through stories helps bridge the gap between tech and non-tech stakeholders, ensuring clear communication. Product managers use storytelling to align teams around a shared vision, conveying user needs and market insights to drive innovation. For students, storytelling aids in understanding and retaining knowledge while also sharpening communication skills. Across these roles, storytelling turns dry data into compelling narratives, making ideas memorable, persuasive, and human centered, ultimately fostering collaboration and innovation. Through this webinar today, we'll dive deeper together into this and other critical aspects of storytelling and its importance in our lives during this session. I would first take this opportunity to welcome amongst us our distinguished panelists for the day. We are privileged to have amongst us a galaxy of experts with us today in this session. I would first now welcome amongst us our expert speaker, Mr. Amit Kumar, with an e-bouquet. Welcome to this session, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ritika, and thank you, everyone.
My bouquet is taking time to share. Welcome to the session, sir. Now it's complete.
Thank you, Dr. Ritika. It's accepted.
Mr. Amit Kumar, sir, is a seasoned leader with extensive experience in delivery and program management, known for his expertise across diverse industries such as technology, consulting, and product development. Currently a director at Nagaro, Amit has held pivotal roles including Chief Product Officer and Head of Gamma D Asia Pacific at Boston Consulting Group. A certified PMP and CSM professional, he excels in agile methodologies, technical program management, and business studies. Amit's leadership is defined by his innovative mindset, empathy, and ability to inspire teams to deliver exceptional results. We are honored to have you amongst us today, and I would now request you to kindly enlighten the house.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Ritika. I'm just trying to set it up on one side. The tool is new for me, but thank you. The handover was smooth, but more or less, excited for the session today, and I'm assuming like the population we have on the floor, though I am not able to see like how many people we have, are equally excited to understand the topic and gain some new learning before we end the year with the last session.
Absolutely.
So, today we will explore the fascinating art of storytelling, how it enhances communication and fuels innovation across careers, as we largely said in the introduction. So my goal for today is to show you how mastering storytelling can transform the way we share ideas, inspire others, and achieve the goals. And last but not the least, storytelling is also the oldest form of education we know. Okay, so most of the times, when we talk about the classrooms, when we talk about the different sessions, it is storytelling which helps. I should say, like the lecturers, the teachers, I should say, the instructors to put across the data in a much more presentable way so that we learn more and more in the least possible time during the sessions. Now, moving to the next slide where we talk about a quote by Robert Mackay. Storytelling is truly the most powerful way to share ideas and emotions, and then that is what is I would say like is clearly visible when we talk about the different shows, different movies, different I would say the theater and so on and so forth. It is an innate human skill that's been shaping societies, solving problems, and connecting people for centuries. So during the today's session, we will talk about storytelling and how we can be better at it in our day-to-day life. Though we are not the born storytellers, but we get better with practice, day in and out. So storytelling is fundamental human experience that connects us, shapes our identities, and has the power to foster empathy and social contributions. So it's not just I should say just a one man driven thing. It is a more or less is a drive societal driven I should say initiative. A captivating story takes the audience on the emotional journey, effectively blending creativity with psychological insights that can have a lasting impact across various mediums including literature, film, and advertising, and could be any other thing or the mode. Everyone has the potential to be a storyteller. Believe me, everyone. Though the people assume like, okay, I'm not a good one, I cannot do it, or I am an introvert or I'm an extrovert, but everyone has the potential to be a storyteller, rather a good storyteller. Practicing the craft can lead to personal growth, cultural preservation, and can be an instrumental force for education and societal transformation, which means keep practicing and get better if you want to see the transformation. Throughout human history, storytelling has been a widespread practice that promotes social cooperation and instills societal values across all cultures. From sharing heartwarming tales, which generally we learned I should say in our childhood days from our grandparents or the uncles, aunties, parents, on around how can a campfire to a I should say a gripping novel stories that we used to hear those times. We are still able to connect the dots when we see some practical situation coming our way in the similar manner. Storytelling serving as an important link that they connect us with others, which means okay, though on one side we are hearing or we are seeing the stories on the screen, but we are able to connect the dots with the I should say on the similar lines with the characters. This enhances our understanding of different perspectives and promotes collaboration as well. Often unexpected but impactful, I should say, no less exceptional stories leave lasting impressions. As I said, the stories we heard from our grandparents, our parents, uncles, aunts, on our hearts and minds. And more or less, if we also look back, if we are being shown a video or an audio in the classroom, that leaves a long lasting impact rather than just reading the stories and then moving on, or reading the books and moving on. So over the next few slides we'll talk about the power of the storytelling, and then also how can we start breaking the I should say the challenge, and then drive the most impactful stories with the minimum effort. Okay, but before that, I just want to check like we all are active, we all are live, and we are in the session. So let's do a small fun exercise. Can you think of three emojis that represent who you are? This little exercise is all about personal storytelling. I know, like, we are not experts, but just combination of three, not one, combination of three emojis. You're defining yourself with the visual cues, just like a storyteller picks the right elements to convey a compelling narrative. For example, I feel like I am a strong person with a lot of love and positivity to give. So, can you all just give it a try with the set of three emojis and possibly like a line describing yourself? We have like just a couple of seconds before we move to the next slide. Nice. Though I'm unable to see the chat, but I'm still believing like there are few emojis coming up. I saw the one from Ajay as the pop-up, but yeah, it is. Cool, perfect. Thanks. Moving over to the next slide. Great storytelling is just timeless, as seen with the legends like Shakespeare, Marquez, and Miyazaki. Shakespeare defined human drama, Marquez brought magic into realism, and Miyazaki captivates us with the visual storytelling. So, if you know, like you come from um, uh, the academic background, you must have heard, or few of you must have like even read few of those, but more or less together they show the incredible depth storytelling can reach. The best storytellers can vary depending on genre, medium, and even the audience preferences as well. So it's not always like, okay, we write something and then we expect like everyone to be on the same page. And the story up to an extent help us to bring the majority on the same page, but not everyone. So those were, I should say, like the people coming from more the literature side, and in today's world, like storytelling continues to drive change and innovation. So it's not just something which ended with literature. If you talk about Steve Jobs, who wove the narrative that made us see the technology differently. The Sarah shared her underdog journey to inspire connection, and Ella. Odysseus' visions make the truth tangible. Though on one side we talk about the people are getting unreasonable, but more or less, if we look at the stories, they are more inspirational as well for me. If we talk about the iPhone launch in 2007, wherein Steve Jobs makes sure the iPhone was not being perceived or considered as gadget in the market. It was more of a revolutionary product, merging a phone, an iPod, and I would up to an extent like an internet communicator, connecting emotionally with the audience. So that's how they narrated the story. Similarly, like if we talk about the SpaceX programs or the Starship launches, wherein I would say Elon Musk emphasized on the reusable rockets, which I must say, like in few years, we will see about like democratization of the space travel for humanity. So more or less, few stories are for today, few stories are were for yesterday, and the few stories which are for future as well. But more or less, this is something which inspiring people to do something for the next generation, for the next set of people, for the next layer. Storytelling is not an art; it's a process. Okay. um, I would say like, okay, how can you say storytelling is a process? Because if we look at the overall picture, it's just a simple framework, knowing who's your audience, why are you telling this story, what's the message you try to convey, and the medium, which means how can you deliver it effectively. And also to mention, like if you have any questions, feel free to shoot out those questions in the chat, and we'll pick it up either towards the end during Q&A, or I'll try to like answer those questions between the slides as well, whenever I got the chance to look at the chat. Importance of synthesizing information. This is something which generally we negate when we prepare for something, for some meeting, for some presentation, for some conversation, for some interviews. It is the critical aspect for us. Where should we be spending the critical time? Often we spend too much of time gathering data that we lose sight of what truly matters to the audience. And effective storytelling bridges this gap. Your audience doesn't need just data, they need insights and the so what factor that connects the dot for them. The one thing that matters most for your audience is the so what for them, not an overview of all have you done and found out. So similarly, like why are we on this call, or why are we attending this webinar? Because everyone has like, okay, the same question. So what is there for me? What am I going to learn from it? So as I said, to create a compelling story, you first need to understand who your audience is, why are you telling this story, what is your key message, and how best to communicate it. So here's the foundation of every great story. Every great story. Time define time we spend like defining the audience and purpose pays for itself by making our presentation easier to write, which means like, okay, I understand to whom am I going to present that part. Step back before crafting your message to avoid writing the autobiography of your analysis. It should be like logical, crisp, and I should say like satisfying the purpose of that story. Think carefully how about you tell the story and create materials for the audience and not just the presenter. So generally, like when we start writing the stories, or when we start creating those stories, or when we start building those stories, we generally tend to focus more on the presenter side of the word, rather than your story should be focused on the audience. The similar way the cinema does in today's time. So who? So first, who's your audience? Identify their roles, expectations, and what they stand to gain or lose. Tailor your story to their needs and the questions. Just don't tell what you want to tell, rather than focus on what audience is looking for, and then try to drive your story accordingly. But that does not necessarily means that you change your agenda. It is more or less driving the people towards the same way, like where your thought process is. There is no story without an audience. So if you feel like, okay, I will draw this story, um, I am the actor, I am the consumer, and I'm everyone. So that's not the story. Some story has like always at least in one audience. It could be yourself as well for your story. Designing a story without an audience in mind is like is like writing a love letter and addressing to whomsoever it may concern. You must have seen those the certificates we receive like from the schools and the colleges, like to whomsoever it may concern. So it is something similar. You're writing the love letter with the same title, not knowing who the audience of that letter is going to be. So ask yourself, what do you know about the people you are presenting to, which means the audience. For a mixed audience, focus on decision makers while addressing concerns of others, especially those resistant to your meetings, which means like, okay, if you have a group of 10 people as audience, there must be like one or two decision makers. So understand, try to read their minds, Frame your story. That does not mean like you ignore the rest eight in the team, but more or less you concern, like address their concerns, but focus on those decision makers to gain the buy-in out of that story. Think before you write who's your audience. As I said previously, you need to adapt your style depending on whether you are addressing teams or executives, which means like, okay, the teams and executives both have their the different mindset. Teams prefer details and context, while executives need concise summaries and decisions. So if you present something which is meant for teams to the executives, it's of no use. Similarly, if you present something to the team which was meant for executives, might not help them achieve their goals. Understanding your target audience, and the best way to tell them the story is just a pre-read of your audience, understanding the audience, understanding the background, and then creating that story around the set of audience. In practice, generally we follow the layered approach. This ensures your story meets the everyone's needs while aligning with the decision making process. Depending on your audience, there are different ways to tell your story. If you tailor your story, the message will be more effective. Of course, the type of audience are a generation, which means like, okay, the same set of story for the same set of I should say like executive might not help because of the generational differences as well. So people from one generation might want to hear the story differently. People from the different other generation might want to hear the story differently. We experience people in industry often feel tempted to use the bottom up way of storytelling, since it resembles the way we tend to work and think. But the right audience, a top down approach is more effective. The bottom up approach is the safer default, where the top down approach is relatively high risk and high reward. Top down is focused for the executives, which means like clear, concise summaries, wherein bottom up, which is for the working team, talks about like a lot of details on how do we do it, how we reach there, and so on and so forth. Does anyone have any good example of a good story failure because of poor presentation and not tailored to the audience? I have a very good one from the last week only. Anyone in the chat? One very recent example, like from my side, is the movie Vanvas. I'm not sure, like, if you have seen it or not. The movie was released last week only. That had like a very strong emotional story, but the presentation was super poor. And unfortunately, we are not able to hear like so many good reviews about the story or the movie in news or in the newspaper or anywhere at all. Moving to the why section. Now, since you have identified your audience and can describe the perspective and needs, it's time to define the why part. Why are you communicating with the audience? What is your purpose? It could be compelling actions, creating a common view, or provoking the actions as well. For compelling actions, for example, choose between options, agree on the next steps, request data or input. Be sure the logic is clear and strong enough to convince, articulate the impact, and address risk and concerns. When we talk about like creating a common view, that is what like we spoke about in the previous slides as well. The very good example here could be like agree on the baseline facts, which means like, okay, what are we going to present? Merge opposing interpretations. Just try to build the common platform. Provide I would say like or adopt a natural tone, which means like, okay, it should not be a built up story. It should appear as like, okay, you're trying to build something which is more natural, which is more I should say like connecting to the actual situation or the reality. Allow the audience to discover the fact itself, which means like, okay, opening the threads as well for the audience also. It does not mean like, okay, this is my story, eat it or leave it. should ideally be like, okay, let I should say audience be part of your story. Be clear if actions is needed, what, when, or highlight the implications of inaction as well during the story. You also provoke reactions as well, challenge the status quo, get commitment to change, motivate, inspire, contrast what is and what it could be, address what is in it for me as well. That's something like, okay, for audience as well, what is in it for me. Appeal to the audience's emotions, just try to connect to the emotions of the audiences so that they are able to connect to your story, that why are we or what are we trying to achieve out of it. The purpose of your story shapes its delivery, whether to inspire action, create alignment, or provide reactions. Define your why very clearly. Make your objectives visible upfront, increasing the chance of driving action or agreement. Use compelling frameworks and visual aids to reinforce your message, which means like, okay, it could not be like the one message throughout the story. You might want to like switch across different mediums of the stories as well during the journey. The same thing. Think before you write. Who's your audience? What are you going to talk about? If your goal is to provoke a reaction, identify the problem. If you don't know the problem, you cannot provoke a reaction. If you are driving action, visualize the impact, which means like, okay, if you want people to do something, just try to be in the same shoe, try to visualize how. Yes.
अरे प्रमोद जी, क्या कह रहे हो? एक वो बना क्या बोलते हैं
Hello.
Sorry, sir, we have muted.
No worries, no worries, Dr. Ritika. And I got confused, like someone has any question or something.
No,
Uh,
no, thank you.
no worries. So where were we? Yeah. If you're driving an action, visualize the impact and benefits to motivate your audience to engage. Okay, and that is what even we are trying to do as well during the presentation. When I write you to like raise your questions in chat, or talk about yourself, talk about your mood, and so on and so forth. So which means like, okay, we need to be in the same shoe of the audience when we are uh, I should say like trying to understand the audience as well. The Muriel Rukeyser reminds us of the profound truth. Stories shape how we see and make sense of the universe. Storytelling helps us connect the personal with the universe. And that is why when you say like the universe is made of stories and not just atoms. Also, to remind, storytelling is also a team building activity, which means like bringing in people together, making sure like everyone has the same mindset, same vision, same thought process, same approach, and so on and so forth. It helps you you craft a shared vision, bringing masses on the same page to achieve the goal. By the way, if you know, or if you must have observed by now, the successful politicians around the world, it's not only about India, around the world, are really good storytellers. They know, they understand the needs of the audience and craft their stories accordingly. So most of the times, if you see the election time and the people doing those, I should say like conversations in parliament, they know what who's the audience is, and then they craft the stories backed by the data pointers, of course. Then comes the what part. Draft the what exactly it is for me. Now that you know the audience, you have a clear purpose, you can start crafting the what your key message is going to be. And for that, you can ask yourself, what is the key question to answer? What does the audience need to know? And what do I want the audience to remember? So these three things will help you answer what up to an extent very clearly. The key message here is to address is like what the audience needs to hear, not what you want to say. The key to impactful storytelling is crafting your core message. Focus on what the audience need to know, not every detail you have uncovered during your journey. You need to structure your story as a journey, set some scene, highlight the problems, propose a solution, and emphasize its impacts. Don't just put across the problem and say like, okay, then I don't know. You need to come up with the suggestions, the solutions I should say to bring everyone on the same page to help you. So it is more or less you help yourself so that people helps you or are able to help you. So generally, when we talk about, we hear about the conventional stories and the executive summary, and then that is what we even spoken in the previous slides as well. Generally, when we are, I should say, not so mature or the novice storytellers, we start with the conventional story, and of late, with the experience, we move toward the executive summary. So conventional stories are something which builds over time into a climax conclusions found at the end, which means like, okay, everything is running, then you're building climax and so on and so forth, as you see on the left on the screen. Up to an extent, like, okay, a movie scene is what we create. Wherein when we talk about the executive summary, it's a more of a practical approach to present the story. You just need, I should say, the four concrete steps to develop an executive story. It's not like something wherein we say, like, we will have like the 50 different halls, 50 stops, and this do this and that, and so on and so forth. It is more to do with the situation, the problem, the solution, and the impact. We all have a tendency to explain what we did in the more conventional way. We want to share our experiences. We want to share the amount of work we did and the smart things we did along the way. We want to convince someone else to take the same route we did as well. And that's what we talk about, when we talk to our juniors or as parents, when we talk to our kids. Not that constructing the story using four steps helps us steer the audience in the right direction effectively. It also saves the times and understanding of the people as well, which means like, okay, you don't confuse them, rather than like you put across the point in a much more straightforward and structured way. Your executive summary should distill the story into simple, actionable insights with exact figures and to the point analysis, not just like beating around the bush, talking about the whole word, but not coming to the point, which actually people want to hear or see. I would say what you see on the screen is an example how an executive summary could have been created. It may be simply just one page you get to present. So you need to spend good quality time on it just to make sure that the meaning is coming out effectively. As part of the story, do not tell the process, tell your story. When you start explaining, you you should focus on the story and not the steps to achieve that story. When writing your story, I should say, when you write your summary, be sure to keep your language concise, clear, and to the point, so that people get it easily with minimal effort. Finish with stating the four steps: situation, problem, solution, and the next steps. Build your story flow with sticky notes, storyboards, outlines. Could be any reason, I should say, like medium, any medium. It's not just necessarily, I would say, like the notebook, the whiteboard, or anything. Could be notes, storyboards, outlines, could be anything. Each story should convey a distinct idea or a step in the narrative. Just one simple narrative. Since I would say, you already have your executive summary in place, though the structure is still not there, you know, like what you're trying to achieve. It is important for you to put your executive summary more into a story flow using a storyboard. So lines are generally a very great tool for every individual to either ensure a consistent story across sections or developing the story for a chapter throughout the series. Storyboards help structure your work by laying out which sections and analysis you need to present your story to the audience. This visualization of your thinking also helps you identify potential gaps in your story and fosters effective collaboration with the team members and the audience by ensuring everyone is on the same page. There are just simple, as you can see on the screen, there are just three simple step approach to building your story, which means build flow of the main message, add supporting content, which means like, okay, you want on one side you have the key message which needs to be spoken or shared with the audience, then the supporting content, and supported by the visual approach. What is the medium or the mode you are going to adopt to deliver your story to the people? Again, think what is your key message, which means like, okay, before you write or before you finalize your story or before you create your story, again think like, okay, what exactly is my key message out of it? Just remember one thing: the story you want to tell might differ from the story your audience needs to hear. Wants to hear versus needs to hear. You need to understand the needs of the audience as well. Frame it around the audience's questions and concerns. Never write the autobiography of your analysis. That is what generally a conventional story looks like. As generally, this might not be of any interest for the masses except you, because on one side you want to boast about like, okay, how you reach there, but more or less the same question persists from the audience side: what is there for me? Why am I here? Kind of thing. Then the third part, which is how. This is also the final stage on selecting the medium. How are you going to communicate your story to the audience? Which medium will you use to narrate your story, or share your story with the audience? Select the right medium to communicate to your audience. The one formula does not work with everyone, which means like, okay, you need to see the kind of audience and then you choose the medium. If you're working with kids, it could be like a different narrative. If you're working with I should say like your peers, it could be different, and if you're working with elders, it could be different. Also, like your delivery style matters a lot, which means like, is it engaging? Is it the monotonous, or I should say like, is it something wherein you pull in people and you put them on the spot? So you need to be very sure about the delivery mode as well. You need to tailor it to match your audience's expectations and the time constraints. Like in our case, we got like 45 minutes, and we are pretty much there in time. Looks like we have four more slides to go, but we have like 6 minutes as well with us. Now coming back to the topic, where we say like the mood part. So executives generally appreciate the polished ones, the concise presentations, while team may need or expect you to share the detailed discussions, which means the deep dive on each and every pointer, every step, the data, and so on. Presenting those insights interactively, like wherever possible, which means like, okay, if you can do it in person, if you can do it, I should say like, engage more and more people in your stories, the possibility of the success of your story increases in those cases. Apart from that, use as many visuals, metaphors, or tools to engage with the audience or reinforce your message, which means like, okay, what is the supporting fact you need to convey the how part of your story. Then the last part, which is summary, I would say. Uh, at last, and not to sum it up, I would say like storytelling boils up to the four critical questions again. Who's your audience? Why does this story matter? What's your message, and how will you deliver it? You need to tailor your message ruthlessly. Focus on the audience's so what, and choose the most engaging method to communicate effectively. It could be a movie, mail, document, meeting, or even a stage show. Any questions so far?
Amit will take all the questions at the end. We have some interesting questions lined up. I think we'll discuss them at the end.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Then there are, I should say, like just two more slides, this one and the last one.
Sure, sure, sure.
So here I've shared like a few of the some good sources and suggestions for building depth on the storytelling for the people on the call. I would say I personally highly recommend Carmen Gallo's The Storyteller's Secret for actionable advice, and of course the TED Talks for inspiring examples. Though there are few more on the slide you're seeing. Just take a snapshot, or feel free to reach out to me for suggestions, and I'll be more than happy to share the slide with you over email. Now, the last slide, and you must be wondering like. Why do we have this quote, or what is the purpose of this quote we are seeing on the left hand side? So purpose of putting this up here is to tell you your story might not be great during the first attempt, but it will get better over time. It takes time to be a better version of yourself with every game. Wherever we could have done better, hear me out, I'm saying like where we could have done better, and not where we lost. Which means like, okay, we learn from our stories, we learn from our learning journeys, and so on and so forth. Learn from your mistakes and move on, as this is at in the last, this is the life is what we call is jo jeeta wahi sikandar, and not beta tumse na ho payega. Everyone can do achieve everything, more or less putting the right effort at the right time is required. Having said that, like I would like to thank you everyone for attending the presentation, and sparing like 40-45 minutes to hear me out. And um, in case like after the presentation, if you have like any questions, or if you want to continue the conversation, feel free to reach out to me. My coordinates are given on the screen. I'll be more than happy to team up with you, and will be glad to be part of your journeys in any possible ways. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Amit. I'm sure this insightful session has enlightened the participants about the usage of storytelling, especially, I would say, in the professional settings nowadays. So, there are a few questions that I'll now like to take up with your permission.
Sure, please.
One question we have, and which is very interesting, I find over here. Can storytelling also help developers to comprehend code, especially new code that would be coming each day, let's say?
Of course, Dr. Ritika. So say as a developer, you are working in a team, and if you are not able to comprehend what you are working on or what you are building,
Hmm.
challenging situation for you, because in today's world people do work, do collaborate with so many parties, so many audiences, which could be your internal team, which could be your external team, which could be your client as well, from the different genre, from the different I would say like the age brackets, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. Another question we have over here is, what contribution can storytelling make, especially to human-centric software engineering, where we have people in teams from, let's say, different backgrounds, different cultures, etc.?
How can you bring people on the same page?
Yes.
That is where it helps. So it's not just about the HCI, it is more to do with like in each and every domain, correct? We have in today's era, we work in the global environments. We have people coming from the different backgrounds, different geographies, different, I should say, like age groups, different thought processes. So to bring everyone on the same page, storytelling plays a major or critical, I should say, like role in, I should say, like driving people in the same direction.
Absolutely. Another question we have is software engineering today is multidisciplinary, like it is being applied across all domains. So, how shall respecting the contrasting ways of knowing the types of knowledge from different disciplines, how will they come together on board in terms of storytelling for a common project?
Okay. If I wear the shoe of a project manager in this kind of situation, how can I make sure everyone understands my vision? What am I trying to achieve out of it? Okay. So I need to break down the story so that one, I cater to the specific audience, which means like the set of product managers, the set of developers, the QAs, and so on and so forth, helping with the what is there for me question. Okay. And having everyone being part of the story will also help them understand how my part of or my portion of deliverable is going to impact the overall vision, the overall journey for the team. I hope like I was able to answer it to the expectations of the person who asked the question.
Absolutely. One last question, and which I find is very interesting. Like everything in software engineering, we know is governed by certain standards and everything. So, what would be the unwritten or let's say the written rules of professional storytelling, so especially for the software industry? Or are there any such written standards that we have?
There are, I would say, there must be some written standards for sure, Dr. Ritika. But frankly speaking, this the question is very interesting, and possibly I also need to do some research before I respond on this. But more or less, the meaning of, I should say, the storytelling remains the same, which means like okay, building in consensus, building in the one vision, and then making sure everyone looks at the presenter or the speaker in the same way as the junior most versus the senior most person is looking at.
Absolutely, very rightly said. And we have an immediate question that I find very interesting at this moment.
Mhm.
The participants wants to know that in some stories the climax is revealed at first and the remaining part follows. So does the same thing happen in software also, and does
Uh,
somehow lessen the curiosity?
that could be a scary situation for the client at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So, more or less, this works really well in one specific genre. We see talk about the movies, but more or less, your stories should be truthful. Your stories should be like more near to reality, rather than like okay, trying to build something wherein I hope we are not trying to build the web series or the theater or the movie. Other than that, I would say like the simple your story is, it's easy and it's better, and it's I should say can is something which can be easily bought by the audience at the end of the day.
Absolutely, very rightly said. And thank you, Amit, for this wonderful session today. It was wonderful to know how storytelling has broken the barriers of, I would say, age and technical domains, and it has entered industry. And it is especially the session today is very informative for our scholars, and I would say would be professionals who are entering the professional world to know that okay, storytelling can now help them cross the boundaries, overcome the communication gaps, and it can help teams aim for the common goal, I would say, at a common level of understanding. So in a much faster and in a more understandable way. So thank you so much for this wonderful session today. And we would not be closing the session before we thank you for this memorable session with a small memento as a token of remembrance for this wonderful session today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ritika, and thank you, everyone. I seriously enjoyed the session today. And the one last closing thing before we wrap up, I just want to say is I did not, I should say, like intentionally link the session to any specific domain during the conversation. It is more for the general day-to-day life as well for us, which means like if you are a good storyteller, you will, I should say, like up to an extent, you know how to maintain relationships, you know how to be better as an individual on the ground as well.
Absolutely, very rightly said. And this is one session, I would say, which is again multidisciplinary across all domains. Because if you are a good storyteller, you're bound to succeed in any domain that you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you so much, Amit. Thank you once again. Please also accept this certificate from our side as a remembrance for this wonderful session today. And we will love to have you back soon with another interesting, I would say, technology or tool that is being used in the industry, which you can introduce to our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. So, dear participants, with this, we have already come to an end to this wonderful session today. The feedback form link for the same is already shared in the chat window. I can already see